On a freezing November night in 1981, Natalie Wood, the dazzling star of Hollywood, suddenly vanished from the yacht, the Splendor Dot, when the faint light of dawn broke. Her body was found floating gently amid the pitch-black waters, still wearing her thin nightgown and a crimson coat as red as blood. The initial report called it an accident, claiming she had fallen while trying to tie up the dinghy. But the bruises, the scratches on her limbs, and her lifelong fear of water, something Natalie had never overcome, made the public suspicious that this was no accident at all, but a cruel act possibly committed by her husband, Robert Wagner. Friends of Natalie had testified multiple times that Wagner had a history of treating her poorly, sometimes even losing control and attacking her. For years, rumors spread of a jealous rage, a fiery argument, and one fatal decision made in drunken anger that caused Natalie's disappearance forever. The police reopened the case. Witnesses came forward, but the truth remained submerged beneath the icy waters where Natalie had taken her last breath. Now, at the age of 95, Robert Wagner has finally broken his silence. In a recorded interview, his voice trembled, but remained steady as he recalled fragments of memories long buried. That night, there are many things I wish I could change. Was this a tragic accident or a crime buried under the glittering lights of Hollywood? What truth is Wagner revealing after more than 4 decades? Let's uncover the full story in this video. The night of November 28, 1981, began like any other for Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner. Glamorous, filled with laughter, and surrounded by close friends aboard the Splendor, anchored near Catalina Island, the group, including Christopher Walken and Captain Dennis Deverne, spent the day talking, drinking, and enjoying the ocean. But as night fell, a tense atmosphere slowly crept in, ready to change everything in ways no one could have imagined. No one knew that the Thanksgiving weekend getaway would become the stage for one of Hollywood's darkest unsolved tragedies. Natalie, terrified of water and unable to swim, was stepping into the final hours of her life, amid a night full of mystery and doubt. The trip on November 28th had originally been planned as a peaceful Hollywood getaway. Natalie Wood, Robert Wagner, and a few close friends set sail with the image of perfection and happiness the public always admired. But behind the smiles and camera flashes simmered unspoken tension, hidden fears, and the pressures of living under the spotlight on that fateful night. The turbulent love between Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner resurfaced once again. They had loved and separated since the 1950s, a romance that could light up a room but could also explode without warning. Aboard the Splendor, the presence of Christopher Walken and Natalie's co-star in her final film, Brainstorm, added to the unease. The closeness between Walken and Natalie made Wagner feel insecure, fueling an undercurrent of jealousy that lingered through the evening. According to Captain Dennis Deverne, the night began peacefully, but darkened as bottles were opened. In the cramped cabin, the air turned suffocating before erupting into chaos. Wine spilled across the table, but what truly shattered was restraint. Deverne later revealed he heard Wagner shouting at "Wood, get off my damn boat!" Jealousy flared as Wagner saw his wife speaking intimately with Walken, the younger co-star. The sound of breaking glass echoed like a warning. Wood, dressed in her thin nightgown, a feathered robe, flannel nightdress, and socks, quietly disappeared from the deck, leaving no trace. Only the darkness and the rhythm of the waves remained. Wagner, according to Deverne, stopped anyone from turning on the searchlights and coldly said, "Leave her there. Let her learn a lesson." Natalie had always been terrified of deep water, a fear that haunted her since childhood. So when she disappeared that night, few believed she would have approached the yacht's dinghy on her own. That night, tragedy struck. On a nearby boat, 2 witnesses heard a woman's desperate cries for help piercing through the darkness, but no one acted. When dawn broke on November 29th, the calm waters revealed a horrifying truth. Natalie Wood's body was found floating face down a mile from the Splendor. Her eyes closed as if in eternal sleep, her nightgown still clung to her, an image that made no sense for a woman terrified of the sea. The yacht's rubber dinghy Valiant, which should have been secured to the yacht, was found drifting near the shore, a lost piece of a grim puzzle. The autopsy by Dr. Thomas Noguchi painted a bleak picture, a blood alcohol level of 0.1% mixed with seasickness and pain medication, leaving Woodley incapacitated. Fresh bruises marked her arms, wrists, and knees. Scratches covered her face and neck. What story did they tell? A clumsy fall while climbing into the dinghy, or the aftermath of a violent struggle before she hit the freezing water? The investigation followed. Robert Wagner maintained his innocence, grief-stricken at the funeral, and avoiding the press while walking, withdrew completely from public comment. Captain Deverne repeatedly insisted he had heard a heated argument and believed much of the truth had been covered up for decades. Those mysteries remained, buried under silence, whispered only through rumors and endless speculation. The initial statements from Wagner and Walken were as fragile as fog. Wagner insisted there had been no serious argument and suggested Wood might have tried to take the dinghy ashore, an implausible theory given her paralyzing fear of water. Walken admitted there had been tension when Natalie expressed her desire to focus more on her career, something Wagner disapproved of. The investigation was eventually closed in 2003 with the conclusion of accidental drowning. It wasn't until 8 years later that the case reignited when Captain Dennis Deverne broke his silence. In 2011, he confessed he had lied by omission. Wagner, he claimed, not only stopped the search, but calmly kept drinking. After Wood vanished, Deverne heard a sound like someone being pushed into the water, followed by Wagner's chilling words echoing in his mind. Leave her there, his testimony, along with the confirmation of the woman's cries for help by 2 other witnesses, prompted the Los Angeles police to reopen the case and change the death certificate to drowning and other undetermined factors. Robert Wagner has always denied wrongdoing, insisting that the night was a tragic accident. He recounted that Natalie left the room after an argument about work and Christopher Walken, her co-star in Brainstorm. I remember we were speaking loudly. Wagner said, "I was angry. Maybe I overreacted. But then she walked away, and I thought she just needed some time alone." When asked if he knew exactly what happened next, Wagner only shook his head. "No one knows, none of us." Yet, it was that very uncertainty that fueled public suspicion. His account was full of gaps. No one saw Natalie leave. No one knew how she ended up in the water. Meanwhile, witnesses on nearby boats reported hearing, shouting, and crashing sounds. Adding to this, Wagner admitted that he smashed a wine bottle on the table in anger, leading many to believe the argument was far more violent than he admitted. People began to ask if it was truly an accident. Why did his story keep changing? And why were there so many strange inconsistencies surrounding her death? In his memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Wagner wrote, "I just wanted peace, but everything turned chaotic, and then she was gone." He described discovering Natalie's absence as a waking nightmare. "I ran through the yacht calling her name. I thought she was angry and hiding somewhere, but then the dinghy was missing, and my heart stopped." Yet his statement, "I thought she was just angry," left many unconvinced. If he truly worried for her, why did it take hours to report her missing? When asked whether he felt responsible, Wagner was silent for a long time before saying, "I was the last man with her. I can't deny that. Maybe I could have stopped it if I'd done something differently. But I don't know. All I know is that since that night, I've never been the same." Some friends and colleagues, like Jill St. John's later wife, stood by him, but others remained skeptical, leaving Wagner to live under the shadow of constant tension. After years of investigation in 2018, Robert Wagner's name once again dominated headlines. Police named him a person of interest, pointing out that Wood's bruises were consistent with an assault. Lieutenant John Corina declared Wagner was the last person with her. His testimony was inconsistent, changing over the years. 2 new witnesses deepened the mystery. One heard shouting and screams from the Splendor's cabin. Another recalled instances of Wagner's past violence toward Wood, but Wagner, now 88, steadfastly denied the allegations through his lawyer, calling them baseless. Walken, meanwhile, remained completely silent. Though the case was reopened, the truth remained elusive. In 2022, Wagner was cleared of suspicion due to insufficient evidence, but the case was never officially closed. In 2024, 2 new witnesses reignited the controversy: a 17-year-old fisherman who had heard Wood's cries for help that night, and a former colleague who recalled Wagner handling Wood roughly back in the 1960s, author Marty Rowley in Natalie Wood. And The Devil She Knew called for Wagner's prosecution before his death. But every new clue was like a flicker of light over dark water, revealing then sinking back into shadow. Did Natalie Wood slip and fall in a drunken haze? Or was she pushed in a jealous fury? Did Wagner truly harm his wife in a fit of rage? The answers remain a mystery to this day. But to better understand the case and why Robert Wagner has always remained under suspicion, let's take a closer look at the evidence that points to his guilt. For years, the Los Angeles Police Department wrestled with this mystery, piecing together fragments of time and testimony suggesting Natalie's death may have been caused by Robert himself. The first suspicious detail was the 4-hour gap before Wagner reported her missing. According to the yacht's clock, Natalie was last seen around 11 p.m., but the Coast Guard wasn't contacted until 3:30 a.m., Captain. Dennis Davern later testified that he begged Wagner to turn on the searchlights, only to be stopped cold with the chilling words, "Dennis, don't turn that on," during those 4 silent hours. Instead of calling for help, the crew aimlessly lingered on board, waiting to see if she came back. When interrogated, Davern admitted that his initial statement had been a lie born from fear and Wagner's pressure. Later, he revealed that Wagner explicitly ordered him not to call for help, not to use the spotlight, and not to contact authorities. Wagner even told him to say nothing if asked and to remain silent about what had happened on board that night. This account aligned with the testimony of Harbor Master Dugan, who stated he had to force Wagner to agree before finally alerting the Coast Guard at 3:30 a.m. The autopsy report unveiled even more disturbing signs. Natalie Wood's body showed multiple bruises on her arms and face and scratches on her neck, injuries that forensic experts confirmed occurred before she entered the water. Suggesting a struggle or a physical altercation, her blood alcohol level was 0.14%, enough to cause disorientation, and she had both seasickness, medication, and painkillers in her system. These findings raise the haunting question: if it was just an accident, why were there signs of a fight? Wagner, on the other hand, told a very different story. He claimed that Natalie left the cabin to check the dinghy lines and that an accident must have happened when she slipped and fell. Yet the details surrounding the dinghy itself shattered that theory. It was found with the key still in the ignition, the engine off, and the oars still tied down as if it had never been used. There were no signs of anyone trying to row it away. So, how did Natalie leave the yacht? The police also noted major inconsistencies between the testimonies of Wagner, Walken, and Davern. Whalen admitted that there had been a heated argument between Wagner and Wood before she vanished. Davern confirmed hearing loud thuds, raised voices, and then complete silence. Wagner, however, denied any serious fight. But in his own memoir, he contradicted himself, confessing there had been a confrontation involving him, Natalie, and Walken over her career, a detail that led investigators to suspect that tensions had reached their peak before tragedy struck. The most chilling revelations, however, Marilyn Wayne and John Payne, who were spending the night on a nearby yacht. The Capricorn testified that around 11 p.m. they heard a woman's desperate screams, "Help me! Someone please help me!" cries that lasted nearly 15 minutes. In the darkness and fog, Wayne said she turned on her deck light to search for the source. Then came a man's calm, deep voice replying, "Okay, honey, we'll get you." No engine started. No footsteps followed, only silence. A deathly, suffocating silence. When that testimony resurfaced years later, it sent chills through the entire investigation. Who was the man behind that voice? Only a few vessels were anchored near the Splendor that night. If the voice belonged to Wagner, that quiet, almost indifferent, "Okay, honey," may have been the last words Natalie Wood ever heard. And in a cruel coincidence, Wagner later claimed he had been searching for Natalie inside the yacht at that same time and heard nothing from the sea. Even more terrifying was Marilyn. Wayne's later confession that she had been threatened after coming forward. A note was slipped into her mailbox that read, "If you value your life, keep quiet about what you know." The sender was never identified. To this day, Wayne insists that the woman's screams she heard that night were real, unmistakably real. Investigators theorized Wagner's motive may have stemmed from jealousy. That night's party had spiraled into a bitter argument between him and Natalie after he accused her of being too close to her co-star Christopher Walken. In 2012, after a full re-examination of the evidence, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office amended Natalie Wood's death certificate, changing the cause from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. This marked a major turning point. Allowing the case to be reopened, police publicly declared that Wagner's statements were inconsistent with the physical evidence and officially labeled him as a person of interest, directly connected to the victim's death. Yet to this day, no physical evidence definitively proves Wagner killed his wife. No one truly knows what happened in that small yacht cabin that night. Only the sound of waves, the ocean wind, and three men carrying three conflicting stories. Over the years, one person has refused to stay silent. Lana Wood, Natalie's younger sister. For decades, while Hollywood tried to bury the memory of the tragedy, Lana kept speaking out with unwavering conviction that Robert Wagner knew more than he ever admitted. In books and in countless interviews, Lana never minced words. "I believe Robert killed my sister." That sentence sliced through the silence Hollywood had built around its fallen star. For Lana, the most horrifying thing wasn't just her sister's death. It was Wagner's long, deliberate silence. He refused to cooperate with police in every reopened investigation from 2011 through 2018 to Lana. That was the ultimate sign of guilt. An innocent man fights to prove his innocence. A guilty man hides. When asked, she always repeated the same unwavering question. If he truly loved my sister, why has he stayed silent before justice? In her memoir, little sister Lana wrote that Captain Dennis Deverne came to her confessing that he had lied to protect Wagner. He described how that night Wagner and Natalie had a violent argument, how he heard a loud bang shouting, and then Wagner's chilling order, "Don't turn on the lights. Don't call anyone." For Lana, that revelation reignited every suspicion. She believes Wagner lost control in a jealous rage, then left Natalie alone in the freezing dark, letting her fight for her life. What broke Lana the most was knowing how terrified of water Natalie had always been. As a child, she had nearly drowned during a film shoot and carried that trauma for life. "My sister would never have stepped into a dinghy at night," Lana said, especially not in her nightgown and the cold dot to her. The accident theory was an insult, a betrayal of Natalie's intelligence and caution. In her eyes, the man once seen as the symbol of Hollywood romance had become nothing more than a ghost. A ghost carrying a secret as cold as the night Natalie Wood sank beneath the waves. Decades have passed, and the case has slowly turned into a Hollywood legend, but the pain remains. For Natalie's family, for Robert, and for millions of fans, her death is more than a mystery. It is a story of love, regret, and the unbearable weight of secrets that time can never wash away. Every time Natalie's name is spoken, the darkness of that fateful night returns. And Robert Wagner remains haunted by guilt and loss that have shadowed him for over 40 years. After Natalie Wood's death, Robert Wagner almost disappeared from the world. The man once praised for his charm and elegance suddenly became quiet, somber, and reclusive. The media surrounded him. The public speculated, the police interrogated, but Wagner said very little, uttering only a few short, broken words. "When Natalie died, I thought my life ended too." Once a celebrated television star, he became a man haunted by the past, one that nothing could erase. When he reached his 90s, Wagner began to open up more candidly and deeply to the public. With old age and fading health, he was forced to confront the memories he had buried for decades. Every mention of Natalie's name pulled him back into that nightmare. And the truth, whether revealed or not, continued to haunt him. The darkness of that fateful night never left, transforming Robert Wagner from a charming icon into a man burdened by tragedy and suspicion for the rest of his life. He was no longer a man defending himself, but a man facing lifelong pain. "I will never truly understand what happened that night," he admitted, his voice trembling with age and emotion. "I ask myself every day, what if I had done something differently? If I had gone to her sooner, would she still be here?" Those simple yet heartbreaking words exposed the unbearable torment that had consumed him all his life in his autobiography. "Pieces of My Heart," Robert Wagner wrote about the tragedy of losing Natalie Wood, with deep sorrow confessing, "Not a day goes by that I don't think of Natalie. I loved her with all my heart, and losing her was the darkest moment of my life." Yet these words were not enough for the public. The contradictions, the silence in the face of screams, the bruises on Natalie's body, and the delay in reporting her missing divided public opinion. Some believed Wagner was merely tormented by guilt, not crime. Others remained convinced that the truth of that night still lay buried. For years, Public perception painted Wagner as the villain in an unsolved case, but behind the headlines and rumors was a man who had lost the greatest love of his life, unable to escape his own guilt. As he withdrew from the spotlight and lived quietly in his final years, Natalie's daughter, Natasha Wagner, came forward to defend him. "He loved my mother deeply. Whatever happened that night, it wasn't murder, it was a tragedy." Many believe Natasha chose faith over truth, but for her, it wasn't a choice. It was instinct. "I can feel his sadness every day," she said. "It's a heaviness, so real, I can see it. I can touch it." In her memoir, More Than Love, Natasha revealed that Wagner lived withdrawn, avoided the ocean, and every time he saw a photo of Natalie, he would fall silent for a long time before quietly walking away. Her words remind the world that this story is not just about evidence or rumors. It is the tragedy of a family torn apart by grief. Robert Wagner lived a life of silent endurance, and though no one can ever provide a definitive answer, his loss and love for Natalie remained alive in his heart, a testament to love, regret, and the inescapable consequences of tragedy. Friends described Robert Wagner as fragile yet peaceful, finding small comforts in his grandchildren and his memories of Natalie Wood in his private writings. He confessed that not a day passed without remembering her face, her laughter, and the fire in her eyes. Natalie could command a room simply by being in it, and to Wagner, she was his compass, his source of life and direction. When she died, he felt lost in a vast cold world. By 2025, as his health declined, Robert decided to speak one final time about the night that changed everything. "People call me a monster, a liar, a coward," he said, his voice soft but heavy with emotion. "But the truth is simpler than that. I was a man in love who made mistakes, and I've paid for them every single day since, though not a confession of guilt." Those words carried the weight of regret and profound pain, revealing the weary, remorseful soul behind his Hollywood image. For the first time, the public saw the real man behind the mask of mystery and glamour, a tired soul finally ready to face the past, and the words left unsaid. The memories of Natalie lived on within him, a gentle light guiding him through the long darkness of his life. Wagner was not just a charming actor. He was a father, a man who loved deeply and suffered endlessly from loss. When news of Robert's passing spread, a wave of remembrance swept through Hollywood. Some recalled his storied career, his charisma, and his enduring love story with Natalie Wood. Others remembered the mystery, the unanswered questions that followed him to the grave. But perhaps in the end, Robert and Natalie both found the peace they had long been denied. Robert Wagner's legacy is not one of guilt or scandal, but of humanity, of love, sorrow, and the pain he carried through his final years. Whether the truth of that fateful night off Catalina Island remains hidden or not, one thing is certain: love and tragedy will forever define the story of Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood, making them symbols not only of Hollywood, but of hearts that could never forget. Rewinding time from the very start of their marriage, Natalie and Wagner had many conflicts. Their relationship was never the perfect picture of love the public imagined. In the 1950s, they were Hollywood's golden couple. Natalie Wood, the young starlet with dreamy eyes and a smile that lit up the screen. And Robert Wagner, the handsome leading man with the polished charm of post-war America. They met when Natalie was just 10 and Wagner was 18. She whispered to her mother, "I'm going to marry that man." It was a strange prophecy that only a few years later came true. Hollywood adored them. The press called them the dream couple. When Wagner proposed, he hid a pearl ring in a glass of champagne, and Natalie said yes through tears. Their 1957 wedding was like a royal event. The radiant 19-year-old bride in white, the dashing groom in a tuxedo. It was as if they'd stepped straight out of a romance film. But while Hollywood celebrated their love story, the couple had to learn to live with one another. Two young people trapped between fame, gossip, and the crushing weight of public expectation. In the early years, Wagner was her anchor, the man who made Natalie feel safe amid the whirlwind of stardom. But as her career soared with Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story, while Wagner struggled with second-tier roles, a gap began to form. She shone, he faded, and love built under the spotlight began to fracture in the shadows of pride and jealousy. Tension grew through small arguments and long silences after parties. Natalie craved freedom, new challenges in her craft. Wagner wanted her home, wanted to keep the woman he loved away from the world's gaze. Friends recalled Natalie crying backstage, exhausted by rumors of infidelity and her husband's controlling ways. In 1962, she filed for divorce. Hollywood was stunned. They had believed their fairy tale love would last forever. But their love never truly died. Nearly a decade later, after both had endured failed marriages, fate pulled them back together. In 1972, Natalie and Wagner remarried in a small ceremony aboard a yacht off Malibu. Both believed time had made them wiser. Gentler. Natalie said in an interview, "I think we went through hell to find each other again." They had a daughter, Courtney, and outwardly everything seemed peaceful once more. Yet, the past never really slept. Despite her efforts, Natalie could sense Wagner's quiet unease. His TV career flourished with Heart to Heart while she prepared for her return to film with Brainstorm, the movie that would become her fate. On set, her growing closeness with co-star Christopher Walken made Wagner uncomfortable. Friends said Wagner's jealousy was like a slow-burning fire. It didn't explode right away, but once it did, nothing could stop it. Those close to them revealed Wagner had begun questioning Natalie about her friendships, even her co-stars, afraid she might leave him again. That night, seeing her laughing with Walken, a man at the peak of his career, poured fuel on his long-suppressed jealousy. And perhaps that was the moment he lost control. Whatever the truth, the night of November 28th remains one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries. Natalie Wood, the symbol of beauty and brilliance, died in the cold ocean waters, taking the truth with her. Police witnesses, journalists, all have spoken. Yet, one question lingers after more than 40 years. What really happened aboard the Splendor that night? Was it an accident or a fatal outburst of blind jealousy? A tragedy of fate, or a crime buried beneath fame and power? And what about you? What do you believe? Who do you think truly knows the secret behind Natalie Wood's death? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching until the end of this video. If you love unsolved mysteries, hidden Hollywood stories, and forgotten truths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next episode. Every story is a journey toward justice, and sometimes you might be the one who helps bring light to the truth.